Hello, nice to be with you again. In the last episode, as you may recall, I said that the Jewish terrorist gangs were getting impatient with the British for not giving them the state they promised them in 1917 soon enough. And they decided to do something about it. On the 22nd of July 1946, the Irgun terrorist gang bombed the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, killing 91 people, mostly civilians. Only 13 soldiers were killed, 78 were civilians. They did that in many a Palestinian village and town as well. Because when the British advertised to the world that they are leaving Palestine, the Haganah, which was the main Jewish terrorist organization, saw an opportunity. There was a vacuum. They saw an opportunity to fill that vacuum, and they started preparing themselves for the day when the inevitable war between the Jewish forces and the Arab forces will happen. Britain, by leaving Palestine, left us, as I said before, unprotected, untrained, and unarmed, at the mercy of the Haganah. None was shown. Many a Palestinian village and town was ethnically cleansed, and many a Palestinian were displaced or killed. Britain dumped the Palestinian problem, as far as they're concerned, in the lab of the UN. And the UN, in November 1947, gave us the Partition Plan. This is what the Partition Plan translated into. 56% of Palestine is to be a Jewish state. 43% of Palestine is to be a Palestinian state, and the remainder 1%, which is the Jerusalem area and the corridor around Jerusalem, was corpus separatum. In other words, a separate entity. The ownership of the land at that time was 10% Jewish, 90% Palestinians. The population of Palestine was 30% Jewish and 70% Palestinians. The Haganah knew that the Palestinians will not accept this plan, and they put their plan, the delete plan, into operation. The delete plan was to ethnically cleanse urban Palestine from all Palestinians. I said they knew that the Palestinians will not accept the partition plan. And why should they? They are the original owners of the land. They have been there for thousands of years. And the ownership, as I said, was 90% Palestinian. Put yourself in our shoes. If you own a piece of land, 90% of that piece of land, and your foe owns 10%, and then some international body come and tells you, you must give up 56% of that land and accept 43%. Would you? I don't think so. So the inevitable happened. There's a document that come to light recently to show that the Haganah, Ben Gurion in particular, sent a plan of his own to the UN prior to the establishment of the partition of Palestine, in which he demanded 80% of the land. Just imagine somebody who owes 10% of the land, and they are 1/3 of the population, yet they demand 80% ownership of the land. And this is what eventually happened. After the 1948 war, Israel occupied 78% of the landmass of Palestine. They did not only want the land, they wanted the land with no Palestinians in it. And they went about cleansing Palestine with venom. One infamous situation that happened in Palestine in 1948, in April of 1948, with the infamous massacre in Deir Yassin. Deir Yassin, for those of you who have not heard of it, was a sleepy little village on the outskirts of Jerusalem. The Jewish terrorist gangs came upon it during the night, killing, destroying, burning, pillaging, raping, etc. They destroyed everything they came upon. Menachem Begin, who was involved in this criminal act, said Deir Yassin was better than 1,000 tanks. Ben Gurion, his boss, who then became the first prime minister of Israel, said, without Deir Yassin, there would not have been an Israel. So you see, when they call us terrorists, they were the people who invented terrorism. How could we be called terrorists? We are still defending ourselves, as is our right by international charter. We are occupied. People who are occupied are authorized legally to use everything at their disposal to reject or resist the occupation. Let's go back to Deir Yassin and the effect of Deir Yassin. There were many other Deir Yassins, but we do not want to mention all the atrocities they did to us during that interim period. They ethnically cleansed many a town: Bisan, Safad, Haifa, Acre, etc., etc. They emptied it of their people under the noses of the British forces. When people in that part of Palestine heard of the atrocities and the bloodshed in Deir Yassin, they naturally fled. Wouldn't you? If there is a savage gang of terrorists coming at you, armed to the teeth, unwilling to do what they did in Deir Yassin, would you just sit there and wait for them to come, or would you run for your life? The news of the massacre of Deir Yassin went through Palestine like a wildfire, and people started to flee. They started to flee for their lives. Most of them left with nothing but the clothes on their backs and the key to their homes in their pockets. This has an effect on me personally. I shall tell you my personal story in the next episode. Until then, thank you for listening. Bless you.